But Section 95 estimate, if they're going to do an estimate because they don't actually know exactly, to be honest, most of the adjustments which are made based on additional information, it's coming from a third party, in which case it's a true additional assessment. If, however, it is just one of those where SARS doesn't necessarily agree with our numbers and they'd like to see the proof for the number, that isn't actually an additional assessment. That's an estimated assessment, because they don't have definitive proof or some other plan or foundation's a better word, for charging the additional assessment, right? And under Section 95, SARS is only allowed to issue these estimated assessments if there's a default. In other words, if you haven't paid your taxes, or if you haven't paid your VAT or submitted your VAT returns or something that's due, you've submitted no return, you have not responded to at least one request for supporting information, or where SARS believes you submitted a return knowing the return to be inaccurate. So in other words, if SARS has sent you a request for verification or even an audit query and said, we're not quite sure about this, please send supporting docs, and they issue the assessment before those supporting docs are submitted, as long as you're still within your timeframes, then that assessment is not valid and should be overturned, right? And for SARS to come back and say, no, they can't be corrected, is blatantly incorrect under the Tax Administration Act. Now, I'll be the first person to admit this is one of those where I am fundamentally and 100% comfortable that the law says this. I'm also comfortable that even the sort of upper management of SARS agree with this, because they've stated this in a number of RCB meetings. This has been reiterated across the board. I did an interview with the head of the Office of the Tax Ombudsman for Systemic Issues. You can catch it on Catch Up with the tax faculty, where even the Office of the Tax Ombudsman agrees that the legal process I've outlined is correct. But to be blunt, SARS stuffs it up sometimes. And I know a lot of people will always have the conspiracy theory around the honor, they're doing it intentionally because they want more money or blah, 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 blah. Right. Am I back? I should be back now. Okay. Apologies. I think somewhere it's 4:15. I had someone just go and say I shouldn't have mentioned a SARS conspiracy. Actually, I'm going to blame an Eskom conspiracy in this case. Okay. But what I was getting to was, genuinely in this context, the people who are making the executive decisions agree that that is wrong. Practically, it doesn't always come through. Now, that's either because e-filing doesn't always behave itself. It could be because there's information problems between the different departments and they're not talking to each other properly. It could just be because you actually got the one clueless idiot who doesn't actually understand the law. You know, could you possibly have a malicious person somewhere in that mix? Sure, but between the other three reasons, I think we've covered 95%. So from that point of view, I would go and say, it's frustrating. I fully agree. It needs to be fixed. Those kinds of instances need to be escalated because SARS management is fully aware that that's a problem and that it's unfair to taxpayers. So please escalate those kinds of situations urgently. Because if SARS doesn't get the examples they can't go and understand why it's happening in the first place and then go fix it. Okay. Right. Here, I'm going to suggest that you actually go and have a look at the dispute resolution timeframes. Right. Because if you're asking for timeframes, honestly, I've given you the link. It will take you to this page. And what we are looking for specifically is Annexure B. Now, very in B, what I like about this and why I'm referring you to this one and not the SARS service charter is because this one actually gives you the dates that are set in the tax administration. So where it refers to section, that's where the time frame is actually stipulated within the law.